Hey, good morning, brothers. It's been several days now since the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah. And if you're like me, your emotions have run the gamut from disbelief and despair all the way to anger and outrage and everything in between. And it would be very easy to write this whole thing off as just a brutal, tragic waste and that the whole country is going to hell in a handbasket. But guys, I want to tell you, the scripture tells a different story. And I want to bring in some hope. Romans 15:4 says, through encouragement of the scripture, we have hope. There is a principle in the scripture called the law of the substitute. And it basically says when Satan takes out one of God's men, God will raise up a substitute to take his place. And we see this in the new early church in the book of Acts in the person of Stephen, the first deacon sworn in by the people to help the church fathers. And he did much more than just set up chairs and hand out free food. This guy had a deep working knowledge of the scripture. And we see in chapter 6 of the book of Acts him going into the synagogue and debating the religious leaders and the religious system who descended on him like a pack of wolves. But here was the conclusion of that. It says in verse 10, they could not withstand the wisdom and the spirit with which he was speaking. Guys, he was a force to be reckoned with. He had the wisdom of God and the power of God on him, and they couldn't deal with it. They couldn't cope with it. They couldn't stand up to it. So when they couldn't beat him on an intellectual level, they began to disparage his character. And when that didn't work, they had to take his life. And he became the first martyr of the early church. Now here's where the plot thickens. Amongst that pack of wolves were men from Cilicia. Now why is that important? Because the capital city of Cilicia is Tarsus. And in chapter 7, verse 58, we meet Saul of Tarsus, who basically organized the killing of Stephen. Guys, here's what was happening. This up-and-coming rising star in the religious system, this 5-star blue chip young buck who was so proud of his doctorate degree in theology and beat everybody in debate, he couldn't deal with Stephen, this blue-collar homeschool kid. And he says, I got to get rid of him. And so he did. But here's where the plot turns. He's now foaming at the mouth, heading to Damascus to round up Christians, to take them back to Jerusalem, to slam them in jail and potentially kill them. And Jesus says, enough. Satan, you took one of my men, I'm going to take one of yours. And so he says, Saul of Tarsus, you now belong to me. You will go as my witness to the Gentiles and take my message of salvation to the world. And guys, most of us owe our salvation to the ministry of the Apostle Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament. Guys, Jesus will bring triumph out of this tragedy. A bullet took down Charlie Kirk, but many will rise up to take his place. You can count on it.